Okay, so today we are going to see how to use VBA to send email using your Gmail account. So we got some things to download. So we're going to download the send gmail.xlsx, download email message.txt, and let's get those two things put in the same folder, so they're right next to each other in the same folder. And then let's talk about how we're going to configure your Gmail to allow this to happen. There are two ways that you can configure your Gmail account to allow yourself to send email from VBA, so from this third-party program to interact with your Gmail account to send it. The first one is where I'm not going to really talk about it because I don't recommend it, but it's possible to say to your Gmail account, hey, allow less secure apps to interact with my account. So, Gmail is pretty serious, or Google is pretty serious about keeping your account secure. And if you're going to use a third-party client like, let's see, what are some of them that used to be pretty popular that we would use? Outlook Express was one of them. Before Outlook was really Microsoft's, people took it seriously. People now do take Outlook seriously. That wasn't always the case. They had an Outlook Express that was just a front-end client to email. Thunderbird was one that was popular for a while. I want to say Entourage on the Mac. I'm not really sure that's what that is. But it used to be, that folks would actually install software to read their mail. Now, most of you probably just read your mail on some website. Probably, how many of you use Gmail? Like most of you. So you just go to Gmail and you use it. But you could install a separate program that interacts with that and manages all your mail separately. And Gmail allows you to do that. But to do that, you have to allow less secure apps. It's a setting. And that's not the way that I recommend. The way that we're going to do it is with what's called an app password. And I've given you a link here to be able to see how to set up an app password. The first thing that you need to set up is you need to have two-factor authentication set up on your Gmail account. To be able to do the example today, you're going to have two-factor authentication set up. How many of you are already using two-factor authentication? Just a handful of you. Okay, folks, let's talk about why you should, if you're using Gmail, why you should have two-factor authentication set up. Gmail 2FA. So ask yourself, if someone got a hold of your Gmail account, what else would they be able to find out about you? Every time you have reset a password on any of your web accounts, what have they done with it? They've done something to interact with your Gmail account there. And if someone can get a hold of your Gmail account, the chances are they are going to be able to get to your Amazon account, to, what's that? Perhaps to your bank account as well. Right? Because if your bank account, says, oh, you need to reset your password, great. We're going to send you a link to your Gmail account to reset that. Yeah. So if there's anything that you should say, you know what, I'm willing to have a little more pain to protect this one, it's got to be your email account. And so the reason that two-factor authentication is so important, don't answer this question by a show of hands. But how many of you have ever used the same password you use for your Gmail account on any other website? Don't show your hand. Instead, just have a little introspection for a moment, because that is where your Gmail account password is going to be compromised. It's not going to be compromised at Google. It will be compromised where you used the same password somewhere else, and they also there have, in their records, they have your Gmail account. Because if they have your Gmail address and those records get compromised, the first thing someone's going to do is they're going to say, try this password at that Gmail account. And if it opens it, then they will steal your identity. And so if all it takes is a password to get into your Gmail account, you are really exposed. So instead, what it should take is a password, and it should take your phone, right? So that you can say, if someone gets my password, if they don't also have my phone, they still can't get into my Gmail account. And that's what two-factor authentication is going to do for you. to be able to do what we're going to do today, you have to have two-factor authentication set up on your Gmail account. And even though it's a little invasive for me to say this example is going to require you to change what you're doing on your Gmail account, I believe so firmly that you should have two-factor authentication set up on your Gmail account that we're going to do it. And hopefully you won't change it back afterwards, because it will make your life a little less convenient, right? Because you won't be able to get into your Gmail account without your phone. You can pre-print some codes that you can use. I've done that. So I have 10 codes pre-printed off that I keep somewhere else so that I will likely be able to get to if I don't have my phone. So I can say, oh, I don't have my phone right now. I can still get into my Gmail account because I know where I've written down these other codes that were kind of single-use codes. So let's just take a minute and get ourselves set up with two-factor authentication, if I can remember how to do it, because it's been a long time since I set mine up. So I just came to Google. I Googled Gmail 2FA, which is kind of short for two-factor authentication. And it brought me here, and I'm going to go to get started. First of all, does this look like a Google? Yeah, it does, google.com. I'm feeling pretty comfortable. I'm in the right place. Get started. An extra layer of security. Protect your account with two-factor, great. Add an extra layer of security, great. I'm going to get started. It's going to log in, see who I am. Is there anyone who's doing this along with me who is not yet kind of caught up here? Okay, we'll give you a second. So just Google Gmail 2FA, and then your first link will be the one. Clicking Get Started. And then Get Started. I'll log in. That sounds great. So for me, two-factor authentication is on. It hasn't been on that long, since April this year. And then I'm hopeful that when you come here, you've got something that tells you turn off or turn on, right? Is it just right here? So yeah, go ahead and I guess try it. You know, if you're going to do this along with us, go ahead and get it turned on, and let's go ahead and make sure it works. I'd like to have someone who's just setting it up for themselves so they know that they got all the way through and it worked for them. Oh, so you're already there. You did it today. Did it today, and you're all set up. Yeah. Okay. So the question is, what about remember this computer? If you remember this computer, then what you're saying is if someone gets a hold of your computer, they're also going to be able, if they can get a hold of your computer and log into your computer, they're also going to be able to get at your Gmail account. I think that's not nearly as risky as just having a password as all that's on your Gmail account, because I think you are more likely to have your password stolen than to have your computer stolen. Because passwords get stolen by the tens of thousands with one security breach. So yeah, but that is a risk. It was a number of years ago, but the CEO of Qualcomm, you know, the chip maker, the main kind of chips they made, or at least where they started, was in cell phone processors. Like the main processing chips in cell phones, Qualcomm was the big player there. Their CEO was a really technical guy. You know, he wasn't a business guy running the company. He was a technical guy that's running the company. He was targeted, and his laptop was stolen, you know, to be able to get at whatever they had IP he might have had on his laptop. Chances are you're not going to get targeted as just a student, you know, but that's a risk. Yeah.
No, you said that if you have a password and a phone number, it's more secure. Is that right?
Yeah. Password. When I say password and phone number, what I mean is two-factor authentication. So every time you go to log in to access your Gmail, or at a new computer, an unknown computer, it'll say, yeah, let's make sure it's you. We're going to make sure we'll either send you a text message that you have to key in, or there's an app. You know, so when I do it, app pops up and says, hey, is this you? I just tap yes, and I'm in.
I wanted to ask, with the people who manage the back end of things, how secure is that? Because you just give it out, and then still out there, people seeing it.
Oh yeah. So the question is it really more secure because somehow your telephone number's out there, that's okay. If someone knows your telephone number, that doesn't help them get into your account unless they also have your phone. So just having your telephone out there, I publish my telephone. I'm glad to give my telephone number out. People can have my telephone number. It's my phone that I have to protect, not my number. Okay. So once we have two-factor authentication set up, let's go ahead now and create what's called an app password. So here's the idea. Google realizes that two-factor authentication is going to work for you as a human signing in, but if you have to have some other kind of app interacting with your account, that's not going to work. And so once you have two-factor authentication set up, you can create what's called an app password. It's a password that you generate just for use with another app, such as a mail client, and that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to come to accounts.google.com. And accounts.google.com, and here I'm going to come to security. And right here, there's something called app passwords. And right now, I don't have any app passwords set up. So I'm going to click on app passwords. It's going to make sure I am who I say I am. And then we'll kind of wait until you feel like you're ready at this page, because here's where we're going to generate the password that we're going to use, today for our examples. Anyone still working to get here, or are we ready to go? So we went to accounts.google.com, we chose security, and then we chose app passwords. All right, so I'm going to select an app here. Mail will be fine. This really is just for me to remember what this password was for. It's not like this is really going to be limited just to a mail client connecting. It's just so that when I look at my list of app passwords, I go, that's the one I gave to my mail client. And I'll select a device. We're going to be accessing this on a Windows computer. That may do something to limit where I can use this. And then I will say generate. And this is the one time that you will see this password. If you forget this password and later decide I want to go get that password again, you cannot get it back. So you set it once, you see it here, and that's it. I'm going to copy it. And I think I'm just going to go ahead and open up Notepad. I'm going to put it into Notepad. And I'll say I'm done here. So now I should see here is my app password, and I can delete it. The really nice thing about this is that if I decide, you know what, I want to kind of revoke the permissions that I gave to that application, I will now have a whole set of passwords here that I'm using to give access out here, and I can just delete one of them. I can just throw one away, and that will, I don't have to change my whole password in general on my account, just that one, and that's, I'm a little bit more safe. If that ends up needing, I end up needing to give that password to someone else, then I don't feel too bad about it, because the only way it's able to access is through the, is where these permissions are right here, and I can revoke that whenever I choose. But that password then will allow us to send, to authenticate through VBA to send email. Okay, so that's the setup that we have to do. So now let's go ahead and open up Excel and open the files that we downloaded. There's send Gmail. All right, so here's the context for today's example. Suppose that you've been hired by the National Highway Transportation Safety Bureau. And I think this is data that I downloaded in like the late 1999, I mean, almost just before the year 2000. So all the stuff we're going to see here is now like 20 years old or so. But you have an internship with the National Highway Transportation Safety Bureau, and you've been given a set of complaints. I mean, one of the things the Bureau does, it accepts complaints from people. And so we are looking at a set of complaints that have been received, all dealing with the anti-lock brake systems. So somehow when this complaint come in, somebody coded and said, this has to do with the anti-lock brake systems. So here's Evelyn Sabo from Finksburg, Maryland, who wrote a letter. Oh, must have been early 2000 or so, because I'm seeing dates here in the 2000s for some of these letters. About a car manufactured by Daimler Chrysler. It was a Jeep Cherokee, a 1990 Jeep Cherokee. So interesting. The fail date here is 1992. The letter comes in the year 2000. You know, stewing about it for 8 years or so before they actually filed the complaint. About the skids, and then we get kind of a truncated summary here. This is the original text of the complaint. Paint is peeling off in sheets, and the brakes don't slow the vehicle. You know, we're going to probably finally complained about the paint and said, by the way, we'll also complain about the brakes while we're here, but it still got filed under here as, you know, being a problem with the brakes. They don't slow the vehicle consistently. Sometimes when you push on the brakes, it's like you don't have them all the time, but and then it's chunked off. I'm not sure where it got truncated or why it got truncated. Here's the next one. When pulling into a turning lane, I went to apply the brakes and the pedal went all the way to the ground. Then I tried to press the brakes again. The brakes, oh, the suspense is killing me. We don't know what happened to the person. But incidentally, all of these also, it resulted in injuries. So this was one person was injured. Here, 2 people were injured. On January 8th, 2008, I was a passenger in a 1999 Dodge Ram pickup westbound on Interstate 44 near mile marker 274. Oh, this is the details. This person's probably, you know, has a future in as a novelist. In Missouri, a Fenton Fire Department. Oh, we're not going to find out how this concludes either. Anyway, so your responsibility is to reach out to this set of people. How many folks, how many cases were assigned to you? 187 cases were assigned to you. And your first responsibility is to reach out to these folks and to say, I've been assigned to your case. I've received your case. If there's anything else you want to let me know, you know, here's my contact information. But, you know, we'll be proceeding, you know, to handle this particular incident. And so you could, as they probably expect you to do, write those emails out one by one, but you don't want to do that, right? So you would like to automate that process, and that's what we're about to do. So let's take a look at the code. What do we have here already? We got a form here. We've got a module. Oh, let's take a look at this form. So I've kind of pre-built for you here the ability to take that password and to store it in a text file, but in an encrypted format. So you can say, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and set up the password here, but I'm going to, you know, I don't want to have to type this in every time I'm going to send the email. So we're just going to kind of save it. But I don't want to save it in clear text, even though it's kind of a low-risk password. Someone could send email from me, but that could be, you know, someone with this password could authenticate for the purposes of sending mail. But I'd rather make it a little bit harder for them to actually get at it if they found the file. And so what this form will do is you invent a key, and then you supply a username and a password. And then these will be the credentials that we're going to be using to authenticate with Gmail. But then we'll have that saved, so we won't have to keep typing in the password over and over again, especially since it's kind of a long password. So I'm going to come here to Module 1, and here's the make credential file. So let's just go ahead and start off by running the make credential file. It should just bring up that form. I'll put in a key of my choosing. These are the times. That's the part that I'll have to type in. Then I'll put in my account, gov.allen@gmail.com. And I will put in my app password. And say OK. Now that should have just created a little file in the same location where this workbook is. So it's there in my downloads folder. I'm going to go ahead and open up and take a look at that. Where do I get my computer? And so I should see credentials.txt. So there is that file with the data encrypted. So if someone comes across it, this data won't be useful for them. Now, the truth is, if they can get to my workbook, the code to decrypt this is in the workbook. But they'd also have to know that this workbook is the one that uses this file. So it's not extremely secure to do what we're doing here. But it's more likely that we'll be able to do that than, because we have to use that password. It's not a password you're going to memorize. And so you'd have to put it somewhere. So I think this is probably a little safer place to put it than actually leaving it in clear text somewhere. And what did I put for my key was these are the times with spaces in it. So I'll need that to be able to recover it when we do. Okay, so in fact, maybe what I'll do is put that here in case I forget it. Hopefully it was lowercase. All right, so I've got us started here with a send mail procedure. So this is where we're gonna do the work to kind of read the data off the worksheet, kind of set it together into a message and send that along. But first, let's look at this module called mod Gmail. So I have uncharacteristically, and the reason is this is more than I want to try to bite off in class. But this is the code that it takes to actually send mail using your Gmail account. We're going to use the common data objects to be able to set this up. So rather than typing all this out, I've given you a function that will send mail. You're going to give it a send to string. This is an email address that you're sending this person to. Send from, this will be the Gmail account you're sending it from, so your whole Gmail address. Oh, let's see, this is send BYU mail. If you're sending using your BYU account, this is the one you use. Here's send Gmail. So again, send to, send from, that's the same. You'll supply the password that you're going to use. That's your app password, subject, and a body. Optionally, you can also give it an attachment. This is a path to a file to attach. So you can automatically attach files to it as well. So let's just kind of talk through this code, not hoping that you'll grasp this at the level that you could recreate this if you need to. Don't recreate it, just use this one. I want to give you some sense about what's happening here. So we have a couple of different objects that we're using. We have an object for the message and an object for the configuration. So the configuration, kind of like working with a database project where you had to have a connection to the server, and then you actually had the work that you were doing that you used that connection to perform. It's the same thing here. And so here we are creating these objects. So we're setting our message object equal to the common data object message object and to the configuration object for our other one. All right, so then the actual names of the various fields that we're working with they are really prefixed with this long thing that looks like a URL, but it's really just an identification of a namespace. And so I've just put this string into schema that I'm then putting on the front of all of the things that I'm trying to manipulate about our connection. So our config says, listen, look at the fields. I want one of the fields. Which one? The one that ends with send using. So it's this whole thing plus send using. And this says there's a couple different ways that we can send it, a couple different methods that we can use to send the message. We're going to send by specifying the port, and that's what the to means here. We got to tell it the SMTP server that we're using. SMTP, Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. Remember, protocol is just a set of rules about how two computers can talk to each other. HTTP, set of rules how a server and a browser can talk to each other. SMTP, how a mail server and a mail client can talk to each other. So that's what this is. Where does this come from? Yeah, this is Gmail. I would Google, how do I set up Gmail with my mail client, and this stuff is published. So we then have a port. We've talked about ports. We had to talk about ports when we were doing connection to database. So this SMTP server is listening on port 465. We have to know that. There's something about how are we going to authenticate, and we're going to use basic authentication. That's what the one means. We then also have to tell it our credentials to connect. And remember, we're passing in a from and a PW. So this is the account that we're using to authenticate. We've got to give that same information to our connection so that we can establish the connection. It's just like the database connection. Sometimes you have to supply a username and a password to get connected to the database. The same thing here to be connected with the mail server. And then we're going to be using a secure socket layer, SSL, so that just tells it how we're going to communicate. Kind of another option in the protocol. And then we update that configuration. And then our configuration is, so now we've essentially made the connection to the server. Then we're going to build the message. So our message object has a to property. That's going to be who we're sending it to. Our message object has a from property. That's who we're sending it from. Remember, these parameters are both passed in. Now, as it turns out, with Gmail, although you can specify who it's from, by the way, have you ever gotten an email that purported to be from someone that it wasn't really from? Someone sent you this message, you talked to them, I didn't send that message. So it turns out that the SMT protocol was made for trusted networks. It was made in a place that we could trust that if someone said this is who it's from, it really was from them. It turns out that when we were kind of getting together for the internet, we're all, you know what, we already got this protocol, SMTP, let's just use it. What's the problem? It was made for trusted networks. Is the internet a trusted network? No, it's not. And so, but this is still possible for you to specify who it's from, by the way. If you were to use your BYU account and send it through BYU mail, you could tell it is from whoever you want it to be from. You put the address there, and the BYU server will just say, this is who it's from. They don't let you do that from a wireless connection anymore. You have to be on a BYU wired connection to be able to send it using your Gmail, your university account. But it really will just trust whoever you say it's from. You want to say it's from, Kevin Worthen, university president, it will just route it. Really kind of amazing that they still have it open. I'm not sure why they do. Yeah, and I guess I'm publishing that on YouTube today, so anyway. Okay, the subject is passed in, the body is passed in. By the way, we're just going to pass in plain text, but there's also an HTML body. So if you build an HTML document, you could specify that as the HTML body. Incidentally, you can actually specify both the text body and you can specify them both. And then the person's client will decide which one it wants to show. So if it just does text, it'll show the text. If it does HTML, virtually everyone's client will be able to show HTML. So you could send kind of more nicely formatted email messages. And there's some other information that I'm not configuring here, but I left them in as comments just so you can know that those fields are there. So here I'm saying if attachment is greater than a zero-length string, that means they actually gave me a path to an attachment. We're going to call the addAttachment method. And we're going to give it the path to the attachment. So it'll attach the file. Now, the way I've configured this, you can only attach one file because there's only one place to put the file name. But notice addAttachment's a method. So with a little bit of help, you could pass in more than one parameter. You could pass an array, a comma-separated list, something that you can then parse apart and then attach multiple files. But this, as it's configured, will only be able to attach a single file. We are then going to tell our message to use the configuration that we set up earlier. And now we're ready to send the message. So here's the send message. I'm putting in an error trap here because if it's not able to send it, I'd like to know. So we're going to try to send the message. If the error number is 0, what does that mean? No error. And so send Gmail, which is the name of my function, send Gmail, I'm setting that to true. It's a Boolean function. So this function will return true or false based on whether it successfully sent the message or not. Now, does sending the message mean that someone got it? No. It means that the email server, the SMTP server I'm talking to, accepted the message for delivery. It might take hours or days before it even knows if it was routable, if it could actually get to the end location. And then, even then, you don't really know if someone got the message. Why? What's that? Yeah, a couple of reasons. Why it might have got filtered out as junk, maybe they didn't look at it. But kind of more importantly is that, and this was true at Tulane University, where I was, my first professorship was, their email servers that, if you send it to at tulane.edu, it would never bounce. It will never tell you, if it accepted it, it would never respond back and say, no, sorry, that was bad. And of course, because that's a really great way to find out email addresses, right? Is just send a bunch of messages to the mail server, and the ones that don't get replied to as not being valid, are valid. And so the security guys at Tulane were thought, you know what, that's information we don't want to give out. And so the Gmail server only knows that it didn't get delivered if it got a bounce message back from the destination server. And if that server decides not to send information back, as far as Gmail is concerned, it was successfully delivered, but it might not have even been a valid email address. So the truth is, I've noticed that was kind of an unusual thing at Tulane. I think that most places still will respond back to say it's an invalid email address. So, but if it's not, what is going to happen? We're going to return false, and we're going to print out here some information about the message, as well as the error number and the error description, showing the time as well as who we sent it to and who it came from. So we'll get that message to hopefully help us see a little bit more information about why it failed. So at this point then, it's only a matter of calling send Gmail, giving it the right parameters to be able to successfully send a message. Shall we then get down to business? Let's do it. I'm going to close this module, and that should take us back to our module 1, and we'll take a look at send mail. We'll talk about what all these things are dimmed for. We'll probably use most of them as we get going. But now we are going to be calling a method called open file of the password form. That should open that up. I'm going to go ahead and run it here. Let me go ahead and put a breakpoint there, and I will run, and let's go one step at a time. So in that case, when that form opens, it says, oh, we're just interested in seeing the key. And because I haven't stopped my code, it's remembering the key that I put in, mostly for convenience of when I'm sending email. Like once I put it in once, I want it to remember it as long as things are going well. Once I close Excel, it'll forget it. And next time I open Excel and try to do this, it'll ask for my key again. But it's remembered it here, okay. So I'll just say, okay, James.
What is that? They run the entire things other than the
So if you got 3 options here, not just the one, you probably ran the wrong procedure. So I'm running send mail, which is the second one here. Make credential file is the one that shows the form with all of its fields. So I'm going to go ahead and say OK. And it's going to say, all right, listen, if there's no password there, get us out of here. So that would happen if it didn't decrypt it or something. But I'm hoping that I'm going to get past this OK. So Shift F8. And I'm reading now off of the form. I'm reading the username and the password and putting them here into these variables. So now just to check and see if that works, let me come here and do username password. Yeah. And so that's my credentials I'm going to use to send this message. So we don't have a whole lot more code kind of pre-done for us, but this one is just going to open the file. So we've seen how to open files and read them. So we're opening the file, looking for wherever this workbook is, plus the path separator and email message.txt. That's the other file that we downloaded. Did I download that one? I don't remember downloading that one now. Oh, the question is if you click the link, it just actually opens. Let's take a look at that real quick. So let me come back to Learning Suite. And right, if I click on this and it just opens up, I have 2 options. One is I can right-click this and say Save Link As. Or if I've already opened it, once I'm here, I can choose to save it. Control S will do it. There must be a menu choice for it. Is there a file menu here? I don't know. Control S will let you just save the file. But it looks like I haven't saved it yet. So, well, maybe I have. I called it file download. That's the wrong name. So the code is expecting it to be called email message.txt. So I'm going to make sure I've got it named that way. Yeah, if you right-click and download, it'll get it. But if you've opened the text file and then just save it, it won't come that way. So, and that's apparently how I did it. So I am going to just change the name of that to email message.txt. And I'll open that up just so we can see it. It's just a text file. And the way that this is going to be configured is the first line is going to be the subject of the message, and then everything else will be the the message that we're sending. So similar to how we parameterized our SQL, I'm just making tags of my own creation here. Problem with your, model year, make, model name. If I got an email that said, as a message, problem with your 1999 Ford F-350, which is the main car that I drive, I would think whoever sent this to me knows that I have exactly what car I have. I don't know what else is here, but this is not just a widely broadcasted message. This is somebody who knows something about me. I'm probably going to open it and take a look at it. And then here we have the message. So this is what we're telling folks. Let's see, format word wrap. Dear first name, when I heard about the trouble you had with your 1999 or 1990 Jeep Cherokee, I was deeply troubled. I've recently been assigned to your case. I wanted to give you my contact information and let you know the National Highway Transportation Safety Bureau is currently making an evaluation of the, see, make, that's going to be Chrysler or Jeep, it'll be Jeep, and then system, anti-lock brakes or something. We'll have to read that off of the text, for a possible recall. If you would like to provide any more information about the incident you experienced back in 1990, it's been 30 years, please don't hesitate to contact me sincerely. My name, safety analyst, and my telephone number. So that is that's the message. So, but we don't have to type all this, right? It's just in that file that we're going to read in. So now I'm just going to go ahead and run the rest of the way through here, and that should have opened that file, read the whole length of that file, and put it into template. So now I should have a variable called template that has that whole text of that file in it. So we're kind of ready to start doing the work of actually getting this to be the message that we want to send. Okay, are we ready to move on, or does anyone need kind of help getting to this point? All right, let's go ahead and pause on the recording. And let's make sure that folks are set up. Pause. Okay, so ultimately, we're going to want a loop in here. So I think we've already got a control variable dim. We've got R declared here. So rather than build the loop, let's just go ahead and set it, prepare ourselves to have a loop here. So let's say R equals 2. And then ultimately, we'll put a loop in here, but now let's just work with R. It'll be pretty easy to put the loop in later if we've set this up this way. So what I'd like to do is I would like to start working on replacing that template with the actual data that I'm reading from the record. So my template, first thing I'm looking for is the model year. So let's do this. I've got a variable already defined called message, so I'm going to leave my template unchanged. So let's go ahead and set the message up then. Message equals replace. Let's look at the template and let's look for that model year. Now, it looks like it's all capitals. And we're going to replace it with what? The model year is in K, it's in column K. Now, we have two options as we do this. We can, let's go ahead and go down this first road, at least on this one, and then we'll decide how we want to do the rest of it. So this is K, so I could look at my sheet called data, data.cells, row number R, column K, dot value. So what that does is it says, all right, we want to look for everything that says model year, and we want to replace it with whatever is on our current row, in this case 2, in column K, right? And so we could do that for all of the things that we want to change. Alternatively, we could write a loop, and the tags are written to support this. We could write a loop that just says, listen, go across all of this data, and if it says first name in a tag, put the first name. If it says last name, put the last name. So in other words, we don't have to actually deal with these individually. We can just write a loop that goes across and does this with a loop. Which way do you want to do it? The loop will actually take less time, even though it's a little bit more abstract, right? We won't actually see the mappings happen as well as with the individuals. So let's go ahead and do the loop. And let's just go ahead and loop from 2. There's no reason to look here. This is where we're going to keep track of that we've sent this message. From 2 to where we end in, let's see, M is 13, 14, 15, from 2 to 15. So let's do this. For C equals 2 to 15, we've already defined C up above. Next. Now in this case, I'm going to set my message up to just be the template. So before I come into the loop, I want a fresh read of the template. So message equals template, because we're defining the template outside of the loop that will be looping across the rows. We'll read that in once. I don't want to be reading that file from the disk every time. I'll put that on my template variable and it will stay untouched. Now, inside my loop, I'm going to say message is going to be what it used to be. So replace looking at message. Now, instead of having this hard-coded, the tag, I'm going to need the angle brackets because the angle brackets are not in the, they're not in the header. So I'm going to concatenate on something there in the middle. What's it going to be? Well, it's going to be the same thing that I'm reading to actually get the data, but instead of looking at row R, I'm looking at row 1. So go back at my data sheet, look at cell number, row number 1. Instead of column number K now, I want column number C. So the first time through the loop, we'll be looking for 2, column number 2. And so we'll be reading whatever is on row 1, column 2, which is first name. And that will be right in here. So we'll be looking for bracket first name, bracket, and replace it with something else. What? Well, whatever is on the row that we're on with the data and in that same column. We'll change that to C. Now you'll notice the tags are all uppercase and the headings are in mixed case or lowercase. And so I'll want to U-case this right here. So we're saying we're going to run this 14 times. And we're going to say, great, look for first name in brackets. And if it's there, which it is, replace it with whatever is in the same column, column 2, on the row that has our data. So let me just go ahead and run that first one. Oops, what do I have? Something mistyped. MESSAGE. U-case data cells. REPLACE. That all looks pretty good to me. Anyone see my error? Parentheses look matched to me. Application defined error. That means that R hasn't been defined yet. So I typed this in but didn't execute this line. So let's take a look at what R, so C is probably 2, but I don't think R has been defined. R comma C, whoops. Yeah, so let's go ahead and just come right back up here to where that's running. That runs okay now. So now let me look at, template is unchanged. Let's look at message. And we should see that the first name has been put in. Dear Evelyn. So now instead of, so we've got that one in there. I'm going to go ahead and run the rest of these. So just F5 to run it the rest of the way. And let's look at the message again. I think we're set up. Problems with your 1990 Jeep Cherokee. Dear Evan, when I heard about the trouble with your 1990 Jeep Cherokee, I was deeply troubled. System actually system is not one of the ones, right? Because system is called what? It's called comp desk. And I don't really want to drop this whole thing in here. I just want to read the last part off, the anti-skid system. So we'll have to do that one by hand, kind of after we've done the general ones. What else do we have here? Failure. It looks like it didn't read failure out because it's fail date. I got to get the year off of fail date. So I have a little more customization to do here. And then plus, we've got agent name and agent phone here. So we'll do those by hand. Message equals replace. Look at message. Look for something as a tag. Replace it with something. Reading from the sheet. I'll just put a couple of these out here. So one of them we had was system, right? Now for system, see if I have something built for this. Doesn't look like I do. So for system, I want to read whatever is in column M, but I want to split that and get just the last one. Whew. So let me split it. And I'll split this based on the colon, that's the delimiter in there. And I will want, now these are all the same, so I'm just going to go ahead and put the number in here. That's number 0, that's number 1, that'll be number 2. Of course, I could ask it what the last one is. How would I ask it what the last element is? That split's going to return an array. So I could split it again, and I could just ask for the upper boundary of it. Do you want to see it, or do you want to just leave it with a 2? This line's going to get ugly. So we're asking for the 0, 1, 2 item in it. And I probably want that whole thing to be in lowercase. Have you ever gotten an email that was like, dear first name? I mean, it was your first name with all capitals? You got, So, all right, we can go ahead and just run that one. We'll take a peek at it. REPLACE, that's delightful. F8. All right, let's take a look at the message again. And hopefully now we've got anti-lock brake system. Currently evaluating the Jeep anti-skid system for possible recall. That looks pretty good. You know, it looks like a message that was, you know, reasonable to think maybe someone wrote this just to me. Let's see, what else do we have in here? We've got the year. The year should be pretty easy. So that was called fail year. And the column of the year, whoops. So the fail date is in column L. And I would want just the year off of that. Fortunately, there's a function called year that will take the year off. Then what else do I have? I've got agent name and agent phone. And these, I probably, doesn't make a whole lot of sense to actually hard code these in, but just for expediency of this example, I'm going to go ahead and put myself in here. Please put yourself in, because when you start sending emails around, I'd rather have it be from you, not really from me. And phone number 801-555-1212. So I'll run those the rest of the way out. Now I think I've got the message properly configured. My name, my phone number. I don't think I've left any tags undone. So now I've got this thing set up the way that I want to. I got this message ready to send. Shall we send it? Let's go ahead and send it. Okay, so, but right now, as one text block, I've got the subject and I've got the message. It's all as one, so I've got to split those off. So I've got a variable defined up above called subject. I think, yeah, there's subject. S-U-B-J-E-C-T equals, oh, before we do that, I think I have one called position. Yep, I've got position up here. We got to find out where that subject ends. So position, was it position or POS? POS. POS equals in string, starting at the first character, looking at my message, looking for the line break. The line break in Windows, we may have talked about this, we may not have already. The line break in Windows is 2 characters. It's a carriage return and it's a line feed. If you imagine what it takes to manipulate a printer that's got a print head popping across the page, you've got to tell it line feed the paper forward, and carriage return, send the carriage head back to the beginning. And in both Mac and Unix, they say, you know what, 1 character is enough. But for whatever reason in Windows, we said, no, we still want both of those characters. So, but there's a constant pre-built for that called VB new line. And so it is just those 2 characters, new line, put together. So then my subject should be my message, the left of message and how many do we want? We want position, which is where it found that line feed character, but we don't want the line feed, so I'll subtract 1 off of it. And then message will be similar. Message now will just be message without the subject. So we'll do the mid of message starting at position, and I think we're going to want +2, maybe +3. We'll take a look at it. Let's go ahead and define the email while we're at it. Email equals, and that should just be one of these locations. Where's the email? Which column is the email in? Column D. So let me go ahead and run those. Let's take a look at the message now. Yeah, that looks good. I didn't get an extra carriage return or line feed in here, so we've got the message right, and we should also be able to look at the subject. Yeah, so we now have those as separate variables. I think we're ready to send the message. Now, this email used to come to me. I don't remember if I still actually have this alias set up for myself. I probably do. isworld@byu.edu. All of these at one point were aliases that came to my account. So it's probably a good idea to at least take the one in column D and change it to an email that you control so that you can tell when the message comes through. Otherwise, you're sending it to me, and I can tell that it's working for you, but you won't be able to tell. It's always funny. I can always tell when someone's taking this example and kind of reworking it because they'll forget to change the messages, and I'll get 4 or 5 emails, to my account telling me about a problem with my 1990 Jeep Cherokee. I think, oh, good. I've got a student who's actually using this somewhere. So, okay. I don't really. I'm going to assume that I still have ISWorld defined, and we'll find out. If not, we'll change it. Okay. Oh, the one that we're about to pull is out of D2. So if you change that's the destination. That's who we're about to send the message to. All right, and if you've changed that, go ahead and rerun the one that defines the email, because if you've done it like me, you've already read that into a variable. All right, I'm going to put an if statement here. So I'm going to say if, and then I'm going to call the send Gmail procedure. Remember, send Gmail returns true or false. If it returns true, I want to actually write the current time into column 1 over here to say that's when the message was sent. If it fails, I would just like to put a message here that says it failed or something, so I can know that I tried and there's a problem with that when I can come back and try to figure it out. So if send Gmail, okay, send to, that's email. From is username, password is PW, subject is subject, messages or body is message, subject. So if this returns true, I'll do one thing, otherwise I'll do the other. And what will I do? I am just going to write into column 1 current time off the system clock, or I will write into it bad email. There's something bad about the email. It's probably an invalid address. All right, well, I've done everything right here. We'll see it take a few seconds when I hit F8 before it decides where it's going to go. Trying to send the message, and it came here. So what does that mean? It means the send Gmail function returned true. But we have reason to think that it actually tried to send the message. So I'll write that in and then run to my stop. Now let me go check my Gmail account and we'll see if it came in. So I actually got a message back from the Gmail server saying the address wasn't found. So it actually found that, returned that much more quickly than I expected it to. So let me go ahead and put in an email that I expect to route to me. So let me change this to thegov@gmail.com. Return to my code. And I'm just going to go back up to where I set the email address, and we'll try this again. And I think I'm forwarding that to this account. Oh, I'm not forwarding it, so it's over here in my other account. And here it is, problem with your 1990 Jeep Cherokee. Dear Evelyn. Everything that we expect, the message went through. Okay. So of course, we could put a loop on this, just like do and tell, and we can loop through this. I won't put that loop in here because when you go to practice it, I'd rather only get one message rather than 100 messages from you telling me that my car is in trouble. Okay, so this is how we send an email. Next thing I'd like to cover is how, and it's going to take a few seconds to send each message. So fascinating as it may be to watch it send those messages out, I'm probably going to be doing something else when it sends these messages. I'll probably get a ham sandwich. And when it's over, when it's done, I would like it to send me a text message to tell me it's done doing the work here. And so we can use the same things that we've learned to be able to send the text message. To do that message, we are going to take advantage of something called the email to text gateway. Have you heard of it? Virtually every cell provider will allow you to send an email to a properly formatted address, and it will route that email into a text message to the phone that you want it to go to. So I'm just going to call send Gmail again here. And I will just print the results so I can see if it did it true or false. Debug.print, send Gmail. My email address, I'm on Sprint, and so I will need to know the Sprint one. I've provided these to you for the main carriers on the System Info tab. So here, and these are all it's your 10-digit telephone number at these domains. So for Sprint, it's messaging.sprintpcs.com. So I'm going to send it to my 10-digit email address. Maybe this is why I get so many telephone calls and people trying to sell me car insurance. I'm publishing my telephone number. At, what did I say? At, and what is that, active cell? I'll use my same username, my same password. Subject, I don't know if that'll come through. Maybe it will. I'll just put here done. And then the message, master. I have finished the task you have given me. How else may I serve you? I do like my technology to take the proper tone when addressing me. But this should now send me a text message. I'm going to go ahead and turn my sound back on. And hopefully we'll hear the sad trombone announce that we got a message. I'll go ahead and run that. And it printed true up here, so it's dispatched that message. We're listening. The message came through. I don't think this computer knows by messaging app, so I guess you'll have to believe me. There it is. So it does say in the message, it says subject done. Master, I have done your bidding. Oh no, master, that's last semester. Master, I have the task you have given. How else may I serve you? So I left out completed, but anyway, there we go. So that is sending a message. The unfortunate thing here is that you need to know the carrier to be able to dispatch a message this way. Almost always about this point, I have a student who asks, and so could you write a loop that just sends that number at all the carriers? And the answer is, yeah, you could do that, but you probably shouldn't do that. That's, just a little bit abusive. You're sending all these messages, 9 out of 10 of which are going to fail. So my encouragement to you is if you're going to use this way to send a text message, go through the extra effort it takes to find out what the carrier is, and then just dispatch it to the direct place. Questions on sending email or sending text messages from VBA? All right. Oh, one question here. Is Outlook similar? Outlook is totally different, but it's covered really well in the book. So the chapter that we didn't really cover at all today in class will take you through how to do it through Outlook. It's actually quite a bit easier to do it from Outlook. All right, thanks for coming, folks. Class dismissed. Probably not. 1776, Abraham Clark. Let me get this saved and uploaded, and I'll take your questions. Downloads.